Ambassador Ellis Reed maintained a carefully neutral expression as the holographic document materialized on the ornate table before him. The Galactic Council Chamber, an enormous spherical room with tiered seating for the 217 species recognized as full members, had fallen uncomfortably silent. The 7 High Councillors, each representing a founding species of the interstellar government, watched him with expressions ranging from smug satisfaction to barely concealed contempt. "The terms are generous, considering the circumstances," said High Councillor Vrek, his translucent tentacles rippling in what Reed had learned was an expression of self-satisfaction. "Earth will maintain nominal independence while benefiting from Council protection." Reed scanned the document, his heart sinking with each paragraph. After 2 years of conflict, following humanity's refusal to accept protected status in the galactic hierarchy, the Council had finally brought enough military pressure to force Earth to the negotiating table. The treaty before him was nothing, short of colonization disguised as peace. 70% of Earth's mineral resources to be placed under Council management, Reed read aloud. Human military forces reduced by 85%. Council oversight committees established for all space-based operations. Earth representatives granted observer status only. He looked up. "This isn't a peace treaty. It's a surrender document." High Councillor Talla, whose species resembled bipedal felines, leaned forward. "Let us be clear, Ambassador. Your species faced extinction. We chose restraint." Many Council members advocated for more permanent solutions to the human problem after your unprovoked attacks on our peacekeeping forces. Reed bit back a retort about peacekeeping forces that had attempted to establish orbital control stations around Earth without permission. The resulting space battles had revealed humanity's unexpected military capability, but the Council's superior numbers and established infrastructure had eventually prevailed. "I must consult with my government," Reed said carefully. "You have 72 standard hours," Rek replied, "after which the Council will consider your non-response a rejection of our mercy. The consequences would be regrettable." As Reed gathered the data crystal containing the treaty, he noticed Morin, the Arcturian representative, watching him with what appeared to be genuine sympathy. The Arcturians had been the lone dissenters when the Council voted to force Earth's submission. Outside the chamber, Reed's assistant, Thomas Novak, fell into step beside him. "That bad?" he asked quietly. "Worse," Reed murmured. "They're not even pretending it's fair. They expect us to kneel and thank them for the privilege." Novak nodded subtly toward a secluded alcove off the main corridor. "Once relatively private," he whispered. "Director Walsh's operation is ready. Do we proceed?" Reed stared at the data crystal in his palm. 5 billion humans waited for his report. Centuries of human history, culture, and potential independence hung in the balance. The Council thought they had backed humanity into a corner from which there was no escape. They didn't understand that backing humans into corners was historically the most dangerous thing one could do. "Tell Walsh we're proceeding with Operation Say." "Phoenix," Reed said. "The Council thinks we've been beaten. They're about to learn how wrong they are." The Joint Chiefs sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Reed finished presenting the treaty terms. The holographic display in the center of the underground war room showed the document rotating slowly, key passages highlighted in angry red. "They can't possibly expect us to accept this," General Ortega said finally, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "They do expect it," Reed replied. "They believe we have no choice. Their fleets control our orbital approaches. Their economic sanctions have isolated us from potential allies, and they've made examples of the few systems that attempted to provide us aid." President Adana Chen rubbed her temples. Elected just 6 months before the Galactic Council had arrived in Earth's system, she'd inherited a crisis unprecedented in human history. "Options?" she asked simply. Admiral Quasi activated his console. "Militarily, we remain outmatched in conventional terms. The hidden fleet at Europa could strike their orbital positions, but we lack the numbers for sustained conflict. The Artemis, bases on Mars and Luna could hold out for perhaps a year." "And the Phoenix Protocol?" Chen asked. Director Walsh, head of the Combined Intelligence Directive, stood. A plain-looking woman with unremarkable features, perfect for her former fieldwork. She possessed one of the sharpest strategic minds on the planet. "Operational," she said. "For the past 18 months, every trade ship, diplomatic vessel, and refugee transport leaving our system has carried specialized packages. Our agents have placed quantum-entangled communication nodes on 76 key worlds. Sympathetic species like the Arcturians and Denovans have unknowingly transported our autonomous systems throughout Council space." She pressed a button, and the holographic display changed to show a sprawling network spanning familiar and unfamiliar star systems. Additionally, our analysis of Council technology revealed critical vulnerabilities in their communication protocols and energy grid systems. Their technological homogeneity, the very standardization they're so proud of, is their greatest weakness. General Ortega frowned. "You're suggesting we engage in system-wide sabotage? That's an act of war." "We're already at war," Reed pointed out. "They're just dictating the terms of our surrender." President Chen stood and walked slowly around the holographic display. "The Council expects us to either accept their terms or launch some desperate conventional attack. They don't expect us to have options they don't know about." "There's significant risk," Walsh cautioned. "Once activated, Phoenix cannot be recalled. The Council will know definitively that we infiltrated their systems extensively. Their response could be severe." "And if we do nothing?" Chen asked. "Then humanity becomes, at best, a client species," Reed said. "At worst, they'll gradually strip our resources and restrict our population until we're effectively extinct in a few generations." Chen looked at each person around the table. "I need your recommendations, officially recorded." One by one they spoke. The military leaders, conflicted but resolute. The civilian advisors, calculating potential casualties against certain subjugation. Ambassador Reed, describing the Council's unwillingness to view humans as equals. Finally, Chen nodded. "Ambassador Reed, you'll return with our response. Director Walsh, initiate Phoenix Protocol Stage 1. If the Council rejects our counter-proposal, be prepared to execute all subsequent stages on my command." Reed gathered the data crystal containing Earth's response. "Madam President, they won't take this well." Chen's expression hardened. "They came to our home and demanded our surrender. They're about to discover that humans don't surrender well." The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with conversation as Ambassador Reed approached the central podium. Word had spread that the humans would deliver their response to the treaty, and attendance was unusually high. Most expected a formality, perhaps some minor requests for amendment before inevitable acceptance. High Counselor Vrek gestured for silence, his tentacles arranged in what Reed recognized as a position of authoritative condescension. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Ellis Reed of Earth," Vrek announced. "We trust you bring your government's ratification of the generous terms offered." Reed placed a small device on the podium. A holographic image of President Chen appeared, standing tall despite the obvious fatigue lining her face. "High Counselors, representatives of the galactic community," Chen began. "Earth has carefully considered your proposed treaty. Our response is as follows." The hologram paused, and Reed reached into his formal jacket, withdrawing the physical copy of the treaty that had been ceremonially presented. The chamber remained silent, expecting a formal signing. Instead, with deliberate motions, Reed tore the document in half. Then quarters, then eighths. The sound of tearing paper, an archaic material rarely used in council proceedings, echoed unnaturally loud in the stunned chamber. The pieces fluttered to the floor as gasps and translator-delayed exclamations rippled through the assembly. "Earth rejects these terms completely," Reed stated, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We will not surrender our sovereignty, our resources, or our future to those who approached us with weapons rather than welcome." High Counselor Tala shot to her feet. "This is outrageous. After the losses your primitive weapons inflicted, you're fortunate to be offered any terms at all." "Primitive?" Reed raised an eyebrow. "Yet effective enough to destroy 17 of your capital ships and damage dozens more." Imagine what we might accomplish if we weren't primitive. The president's hologram continued. Instead, Earth proposes the following: immediate withdrawal of Council military forces from the Sol system, recognition of Earth's sovereign territory, including all planetary bodies and stations within our system, and Earth's admission to the Council as a full member with equal standing. The chamber erupted in incredulous shouts. High Councillor Vrek's tentacles contorted in what the human delegation recognized as expressions of rage and disbelief. "Silence!" commanded Moren, the Arcturian representative, his voice cutting through the chaos. The humans have the right to present counterterms, however. Optimistic they may be. "Optimistic?" Vrek sputtered. "They're delusional! Their planet is blockaded, their fleets contained. They have no leverage for such demands." Reed smiled thinly. "I wouldn't be so certain, High Councillor." He nodded to Thomas Novak, who activated another device. The chamber's main display screen flickered, then showed a series of locations recognizable to the Council members. The central power distribution hub on Rek's homeworld, the orbital defense matrix protecting the Council's primary shipyards, the quantum communication array that connected the furthest Council territories. Each location was marked with a small, pulsing red dot. "For the past 18 months, Reed continued calmly, while you believed us isolated and focused solely on defense, we've been learning about you, your systems, your vulnerabilities. These are classified locations," hissed Tala. "How did you obtain these images?" "The same way we placed quantum-entangled devices at each location," Reed replied. "Your confidence in your technological superiority led to complacency. Your standardized protocols made infiltration remarkably straightforward." The Council representatives stared in dawning horror as understanding spread. The humans hadn't been desperately holding out. They'd been meticulously planning. "Earth does not wish conflict," Reed continued, his voice softer but no less firm. "We came to the stars hoping for friendship, knowledge, and mutual prosperity. Instead, we found imperialism disguised as benevolence. We've demonstrated only a fraction of our capability for resistance." President Chen's hologram spoke again. "The Council has 72 standard hours to consider our terms. We remain open to genuine negotiation between equals. Choose carefully." The hologram disappeared. Reed gathered his materials calmly, nodded respectfully to the assembly, and walked out. Leaving behind a council chamber descended into pandemonium and a torn treaty scattered like fallen leaves across the floor. "They think we're bluffing," Reed informed the emergency session of Earth's Security Council. The ambassador's hologram flickered slightly. The Council had begun attempting to interfere with Earth's quantum communications, with limited success. "Elaborate," President Chen requested, leaning forward in her chair. "They've intensified the blockade. 3 additional battle groups have entered the system. They're positioning for a decisive strike against our remaining orbital defenses." Reed's expression remained composed despite the gravity of his words. High Councillor Vrek issued an ultimatum: surrender unconditionally within 24 hours. "Or face pacification." Director Walsh tapped her datapad. "Their internal communications suggest divided opinions. The militarist factions led by Vrek and Tala advocate immediate action to correct the human misconception of their importance. Others, primarily the Arcturians and trading worlds dependent on stable markets, urge caution." "And our intelligence assets?" Chen asked. "Remain undetected," Walsh confirmed. "They've conducted extensive scans, but haven't identified our quantum-entangled nodes. Their technological paradigm doesn't accommodate our approach." Admiral Quasey's weathered face showed concern. "Even with Phoenix, a direct confrontation against their combined fleets would result in significant casualties. If they're calling our bluff, then we demonstrate it's not a bluff," Chen concluded firmly. She turned to Walsh. "Initiate Phoenix Stage 2, targeted systems only, minimal collateral impact." Walsh nodded and spoke quietly into her secure communicator. Moments later, the room's main display activated, showing multiple feeds from across Council space. On Centauri Prime, the Central Administrative District plunged into darkness as power systems failed. Around the shipyards of Proxima Secundus, Automated defense platforms suddenly rotated and targeted their own control stations. On 17 core worlds, transportation systems ground to a halt as navigation computers displayed a simple message in each species' native language: Earth is not defeated. The room watched in silence as the carefully orchestrated disruptions cascaded through Council infrastructure. Not catastrophic damage, nothing that would cause casualties or permanent harm, but a precise demonstration of capability. "They're reacting," Walsh reported as data streamed in. "Military alerts across all systems, emergency protocols activated. Their encryption frequencies are changing, but our systems are adapting as programmed." Reed's hologram showed him receiving information from his staff. "The Council has called an emergency session. Reports of our demonstration are reaching them now." Chen nodded grimly. "Ambassador, return to the Council. Make it clear this was a measured response. We could have done much worse." As Reed's hologram disappeared, Admiral Quasey approached the President. "They may still choose escalation over negotiation. Pride is a powerful motivator, especially for species like Rex that have never faced serious opposition." "Then we proceed." "To stage 3 if necessary," Chen replied. "But let's hope it doesn't come to that." On the diplomatic shuttle returning to the Council station, Reed prepared his address. The shuttle's viewports showed the imposing Council fleet, hundreds of vessels arranged in defensive formations, weapons certainly targeting his small craft. His communication officer looked up suddenly. "Ambassador, we're receiving a direct transmission from High Counselor Moren of the Arcturians. Private channel." Reed accepted the call, and Moren's elongated features appeared on screen. The Arcturian looked troubled. "Ambassador Reed, I speak unofficially. The Council is in disarray. What you've demonstrated, it changes everything. Vrek and Tala still demand military action, but others now question the wisdom of underestimating humans further." "Our demonstration was intentionally limited," Reed replied carefully. "I understand," Moren said. "And that fact frightens many more than if you had simply struck with full force. They now wonder what else humans are capable of." He paused. "I cannot officially advise you, but if I could, I would suggest you prepare to reveal more about humanity's history. The Council fears what it does not understand." As the transmission ended, Reed pondered Moren's words. Perhaps it was time the Council learned why provoking humans had been their gravest miscalculation. The Council chamber had been reconfigured. Where once the tiered seating emphasized the High Counselor's elevated status, now a circular arrangement suggested, if not equality, at least a recognition that the dynamic had shifted. Security had been quadrupled, with guards from multiple species positioned at every entrance. Ambassador Reed entered without fanfare, noting the tension that rippled through the assembly. Many representatives flinched when the doors sealed behind him. High Counselor Vrek spoke first, his tentacles rigidly controlled. "The Council acknowledges Earth's demonstration. These acts of sabotage violate numerous Council laws and confirm our concerns about human aggression." "With respect, Counselor," Reed replied calmly, "infiltration is not sabotage. We caused no permanent damage, took no lives. We merely demonstrated that your belief in our containment was incorrect." "How?" demanded Tala, her feline features contorted in frustration. "Our blockade is impenetrable, our surveillance absolute. How did primitives who achieved spaceflight mere centuries ago penetrate our most secure systems?" Reed smiled slightly. "Perhaps I can help the Council understand humanity better. You've studied our biology, our technology, our recent history, but you've missed something fundamental about humans." He activated a holographic display showing Earth through its history: ancient civilizations, medieval kingdoms, industrial revolutions, digital transformations. "Humans have spent thousands of years fighting each other," Reed explained. "While your species evolved in environments that fostered cooperation or straightforward dominance hierarchies, Earth's diverse conditions created endless competition. When we weren't fighting each other, we fought our environment. Ice ages, floods, volcanic winters. Images of warfare flashed by, from ancient armies to modern conflicts. This isn't primitive aggression," Reed continued. It's adaptation, survival. Each conflict drove innovation. When conventional tactics failed, we developed unconventional ones. When direct confrontation proved costly, we mastered espionage, subversion, insurgency. High Counselor Moran leaned forward. You're saying human history is just warfare? No, Reed corrected. Human history is adaptation and perseverance against overwhelming odds. We've faced extinction-level events and survived. We've nearly destroyed ourselves and pulled back from the brink. We've turned enemies into allies and rebuilt from rubble. The display showed the aftermath of devastated cities, followed by their reconstruction. Enemies signing peace treaties. Former battlegrounds transformed into memorials and parks. When your ships arrived demanding our submission, you saw our limited space presence and calculated that we were vulnerable. What you couldn't see was that you were activating patterns of resistance refined across thousands of years. Reed displayed the current situation. Council ships blockading Earth, alongside a representation of Phoenix nodes scattered throughout Council space. While you watched our fleets, we studied how your systems worked. While you monitored our communications, we were sliding through the gaps in your security. Not because we're inherently aggressive, but because we've learned through bitter experience to prepare for worst-case scenarios. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Our Phoenix protocol isn't merely technological, Reed explained. It's philosophical. In our mythology, the Phoenix burns completely, yet rises reborn from its ashes. Throughout our history, human civilizations have fallen only for new ones to emerge. You cannot defeat an adversary that converts destruction into renewal. High Counselor Rex tentacles had lost their rigid posture. You claim your infiltration is defensive. Your demonstrations were acts of peace. We claim that treating humans as conquered subjects rather than potential allies was your fundamental mistake, Reed answered. We don't want war. We want recognition that humanity has earned its place among the stars through our own merits, not as subordinates existing on your sufferance. Reed closed the holographic display. Earth remains open to genuine negotiation between equals. We've shown a fraction of our capability for resistance. Would you prefer to see our capability for cooperation instead? As murmurs spread through the chamber, Reed noticed something he hadn't seen before in the Council's reaction. Respect tinged with the first hints of understanding. 3 days later, the real negotiations began. The venue had changed significantly. A neutral station in the Arcturus system, with delegations from Earth and the Council, granted equal status and security protocols. Ambassador Reed led a team of 12 humans representing various aspects of Earth's governance, sciences, and culture. The Council had dispatched a similarly diverse delegation, no longer exclusively dominated by the founding species. High Counselor Moran of the Arcturians had been appointed lead negotiator, a clear signal that the militant approach championed by Rek had lost favor. We begin these proceedings with mutual recognition of sovereignty and dignity, Moran announced, formally. The recent demonstrations have created an opportunity for reassessment of assumptions on both sides. Reed nodded. Earth appreciates this change in approach. We come seeking understanding, not victory. What followed was unlike any diplomatic engagement in Council history. Rather than presenting demands and concessions, the sessions began with information exchange. Humans shared detailed accounts of their history, conflicts and resolutions, failures and achievements. Council representatives reciprocated with insights into their own developmental paths. During a recess on the 5th day, Moran approached Reed in the station's observation deck. Beyond the transparent aluminum viewport, the blue-white star Arcturus dominated the view. Your Phoenix protocol, Moran said without preamble. Our technical experts still cannot determine how your entangled nodes evaded detection. Such technology shouldn't be possible with your civilization's development timeline. Reed smiled slightly. Not all advancement is linear, Counselor. Human innovation often accelerates under pressure. When various Earth governments realized the existential threat the Council's approach represented, competing nations unified their research efforts. Necessity drove breakthroughs. And these nodes remain active? Some, Reed acknowledged. Others have been deactivated as gestures of good faith. Earth has no desire to maintain a permanent infiltration of Council systems once genuine security guarantees are established. Moren's large eyes studied Reed carefully. The Council has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, 17 species have been incorporated as protected members. None ever challenged the process. Perhaps that reveals more about the process than about us, Reed suggested. When sessions resumed, the tone had shifted further. Council representatives began asking questions that revealed genuine curiosity rather than strategic calculation. How had humans recovered from near-extinction events during their evolution? How had nations that fought devastating wars become peaceful allies within single generations? How had divided planetary governance transformed into unified purpose when faced with external threat? On the 8th day, the delegates moved to specific treaty provisions. Earth would maintain complete sovereignty over the Sol system. Human military forces would not be restricted, but would coordinate with Council defense networks against common threats. Earth would gain membership in the Council, not as a protected species, but as a probationary full member, with a path to permanent status within 5 standard years. In return, Earth would share certain technological innovations, particularly in adaptive systems and unconventional problem-solving. The Phoenix Protocol would be gradually dismantled under mutual verification, with some elements adapted for collective security against genuine threats to galactic stability. As the framework took shape, Reed noticed the Council representatives displaying unexpected deference to human perspectives. Not fear, something else. Something like respect. During the final session, High Councillor Vrek made a surprise appearance. His tentacles arranged in the formal pattern indicating sincere communication, he addressed the assembly. The Council's approach to Earth was based on millennia of experience with developing species, he stated. We believed we understood the pattern of civilizational development. We were wrong. Humans represent something we had not encountered. A species forged by adversity into something uniquely resilient. He turned to Reed. The torn treaty that caused such outrage? It now resides in my personal collection. A reminder that assumptions lead to blindness, and blindness to miscalculation. When the final document was prepared, both sides observed their respective ceremonial traditions. The humans signed with ink on specialized paper. The Council representatives encoded their genetic approval markers. Together, they inaugurated a new chapter in galactic history, not as conquerors and conquered, but as different peoples discovering their places in a shared cosmos. 1 standard year later, Ambassador Reed stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the newly constructed diplomatic hub orbiting Earth. Below, the blue-white marble of humanity's homeworld rotated serenely, while above, vessels from 24 Council species moved in careful traffic patterns. Quite a change from last year, came a voice behind him. Reed turned to find High Councillor Morin approaching, his elongated form moving with the characteristic Arcturian fluidity. Indeed, Reed agreed, though I suspect neither side fully anticipated the extent of the transformations. They stood in companionable silence, watching as a massive Denovan freighter docked at one of the commercial ports. Trade between Earth and Council worlds had expanded exponentially in recent months, with human innovations proving unexpectedly valuable across multiple sectors. The educational exchange program has received nearly 30,000 applications from Council worlds, Morin noted. Young people eager to study at Earth universities, 5 times more than anticipated. Reed nodded. And twice as many humans have applied for positions on Council worlds. Curiosity appears to be a shared trait, after all. The aftermath of what historians were already calling the treaty crisis had defied conventional expectations. Rather than lingering suspicion and resentment, a remarkable pattern of mutual fascination had emerged. Council species discovered in humans an approach to problem-solving unlike anything in their experience. Humans found in the diverse Council cultures new perspectives that challenged their fundamental assumptions. The military cooperation has been particularly surprising, Moren continued. After your Phoenix protocol, I expected centuries of security. Paranoia, Reed smiled. Humans have considerable practice transitioning from adversaries to allies. Our history is filled with former enemies who became our closest partners. The Defensive Coordination Program, initially a cautious monitoring arrangement, had evolved into joint training exercises, tactical exchanges, and collaborative research. Admiral Quasey now served as Earth's representative on the Council Defense Committee, her insights reshaping doctrines that had remained static for millennia. There is something I've been authorized to share with you, Moren said, his tone becoming more formal. The Council's Evaluation Committee has completed its first assessment of Earth's probationary membership. Reed turned to face the Arcturian directly. This evaluation had not been expected for another 6 months. The committee has recommended acceleration of Earth's path to full membership, Moren continued. What was planned as a 5-year process will be compressed to 2, with voting rights granted immediately on provisional basis. That's unprecedented, Reed said carefully. As was your Phoenix protocol, Moren replied, with the gesture that, Reed had learned, indicated Arcturian amusement. The Council recognizes now what it failed to see initially. Humanity doesn't just deserve a place among galactic civilization. Galactic civilization needs humanity's perspective. Beyond the viewport, a small vessel launched from Earth, one of the new hybrid designs incorporating both human innovation and Council standard technologies. Its distinctive profile represented a literal fusion of approaches that most had believed incompatible. We feared you initially, Moren admitted. Not just your demonstrated capabilities, but what you represented, a challenge to our most basic assumptions about civilizational development. We believed our path was universal, that all species progressed through the same stages at different rates. And now we understand that diversity extends beyond biology into history itself. The forces that shaped humanity, your competitive environments, your existential challenges, your constant reinvention, created something the galaxy has never seen and may never see again. Moren's eyes reflected the starlight. The Council feared difference. Now we recognize its value. As they watched Earth rotating below, Reed contemplated the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. A year ago, the torn treaty had seemed like humanity's final defiant gesture before probable destruction. Now it represented the beginning of an unexpected renaissance. The Galactic Council thought we were bluffing, Reed said softly, until we tore up their peace treaty. They expected submission and found partnership instead. And the galaxy, Moren replied, is immeasurably better for it. Together, human and Arcturian observed the growing traffic between Earth and the stars, no longer conquerors and conquered, no longer alien and native, but fellow travelers in the vast mystery of cosmic existence. Different in origin, but united in destination, a future neither could have reached alone.